Bismarck Insights with Mayor Mike Schmitz, a transparent and engaging conversational dive into meaningful topics impacting local government in Bismarck, North Dakota. Bismarck Insights is dedicated to removing barriers between the City of Bismarck and the citizens we serve every day.
Hello and welcome to Bismarck Insights. I'm Mayor Mike Schmitz, and today we're kind of in budget season, so we're going to talk 2026 budget for the City of Bismarck with Dmitriy Chernyak, the director of our finance department and other areas that fall underneath him. Dmitry, I think this is like the third time, maybe third or fourth, that you've been on Insights, and we certainly have a common ground because we both practice in accounting. But we're here today to talk about the finance department and how our 2026 budget is going to look, what the processes are, and certainly as a result of the legislative session this past spring, it probably hasn't necessarily had a dramatic impact on how we go about the process of budgeting, but certainly it has an impact on how we're going to look at budgeting going forward, where we need to be very aware of what those limitations are on funding sources so that we do not overspend, and certainly don't want to look for other avenues that just is a way around that property tax, because that is not what we want to do. We certainly respect what the intent was. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about a little bit about 1176, which is the House bill that passed the legislative session, and what, from your view as the Director of Finance and the person that oversees the budgeting process for all of our components of the City of Bismarck, what do you view that doing for us, or the guidance it's given us?
Yeah, Mayor, great question. This has definitely been a kind of an interesting road for the past, I would say 8 months, that we have to sort of go from the start of the House bill was introduced to the approval of the House bill, to how it changed from where it was in the beginning to where it ended up, and to where we are now, where we're planning for the 2026 budget. The House bill really restricts the city's property tax collections to grow by more than 3%. And I think that was the intent of the legislators and the state, to really put a cap on how much the cities and political subdivisions can collect in property tax. The impact to the city really boils down to where the city cannot collect more than 3% in any given year, which means that
increase of more than
3% in any given year. You're correct on the total collection of property tax for the city. And what that really does is, in the past, the city had that ability to move that up and down, and however the city commission chose to work with property tax, where now it's capped at 3%, so nothing can go above that. What that does is, basically, we need to be careful how we project future operating budgets and how we potentially add positions, which are ongoing costs for the city. And so we are very careful this year when we were planning the 2026 budget, and how we looked into the future, and how we looked at ongoing costs for the city into the future, and what limitations we would limitations we would have in terms of adding potential costs that would run into future years.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how 1176 is working. You mentioned it's a 3% increase on the prior year property tax dollars that the city had levied or assessed, and then that still has an interplay, because valuations still play into how this is calculated, because the bill only said if you collected $100 next year on those same properties that previously were levied, you can collect $103. But how that's allocated still varies based upon the makeup of values of the properties within the City of Bismarck. So 3% for dollars might not be 3% for the actual tax that a person on their house pays. It could be more, it could be less. Hopefully it's relatively within the range. We know there could be the risk of some outliers, and we hopefully won't see significant components of that, but the goal, we know what property values on average went up in the City of Bismarck, around 3.25%. So that means, generally speaking, probably going to see around a 3% increase in dollars for those properties year over year, correct?
That is correct, Mayor. Overall, the political subdivisions can only collect up to 3%, but you're correct. Individual properties may have fluctuations because the formula itself, how it's built, is built on a factor times the valuation, and the ending number, the result, is capped at 3%. What the city can actually use as revenue, as resources for future expenditures, is capped, not individual property taxes, because those individual properties are based on their valuations, meaning what their market is. So the valuations are not capped, and they can fluctuate depending on what the market does in different areas of Bismarck. So some properties may have an increase, but some properties may actually have a decrease in their valuations and have, a reduced property tax bill. And
it's all on an allocation, so it's property A divided by the total of all properties. So hopefully we can, we're going to have to work through this, and we understand it. And as the commission, we've been very concerned to how that plays out.
Yeah.
The other thing is we're only a component of the total property taxes that are levied on one's home inside of Bismarck. And I don't remember what the ratio is, but let's just say it's 25%. That's probably
somewhere between 25 and 30.
So that's generally been where it's been at. But then there's also, if there's new property that comes on or improvements to property, then those properties receive the same rate as anybody else had. So they could certainly see a significant increase if they improve their property because they've got new value, new property in the city. And that also is part of the budgetary numbers that are coming through. The other part of 1176 that happened, though, or two pieces, most critical is the personal residency credit. And so that went from 500 to 1,600, correct?
Yep.
So, we would anticipate there may very well be many property owners inside the city of Bismarck that, even with all the political subdivisions, all four of us, that once they see that $1,100 credit, an increase in credit, if they applied for it, and please do apply for that if you have, you'll need to do it next year now, it's probably past the date, but that certainly could see people have a reduction in their property taxes globally.
You are correct. You're right. There are four political subdivisions, and that's something we need to make clear to our taxpayers, is that there's school district, there's the park district, there's the city, and then there's the county. Those four main political subdivisions make up the property tax bill. So it's not just the city or just the county or just the school district and just the park district. We're all combined together on I'm a resident of City of Bismarck, just like you are,
yep.
And we receive a property tax bill that has those political subdivisions broken down, and everybody charges something different, where we're all capped at 3% this year, how much we can actually collect. But like you said, the individual bills will be based on a factor. The credit will certainly help because, like you said, I think it will definitely, we all should see, citizens of Bismarck should see a reduction in their property tax for the most part.
So Dmitriy, let's talk about, in addition to the personal residency credit, the legislature did enhance the homestead credit a little bit. We can help with that, assist people fill it out, but I encourage citizens to do that because that also will help your taxes on your houses.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Our staff on the third floor of the City County building on 221 North 5th Street, if anybody wants to come in and get help with the tax credit, we have staff dedicated to helping people with filling out those tax credit applications, and determining eligibility.
Oh, perfectly. Let's move into the 2026 budget and kind of the process that you asked the departments to go through, and then what the city will go through. And we'll get into some more specifics, but how does it start? How do we determine what we have to do? Because we first budget expenses and then see if that even fits within the revenue that we might have, and then start making some adjustments.
Thank you, Mayor. You're exactly right. We start by asking department directors. We give them about a month and a half to look at their existing budgets from the year before and determine what they potentially need in the following year's budget, in this case 2026. We start the process around March or April and take it into about June, to where department directors can add things, remove things, talk through things with us. and obviously talk to their portfolio commissioners. So every city commissioner has a portfolio department or departments like yourself.
Yep.
And we try to encourage our department directors to discuss their needs and their requests with their portfolio commissioner to see if there is agreement and their support for what they're asking for. And then they basically upload everything electronically to the finance department. We organize it, sort it, put it into a summary sheet and summary form, and then we also try to use those numbers to project out what would the budget look like if everything was approved. And so then we bring that over to the budget committee, which consists of City Administrator Tomanek, Assistant City Administrator Doug Wiles, and Commissioner Anna Cleary, and myself. And I obviously have two of my staff from the finance department that assist us with calculating numbers. We get together, we meet with every single department, excuse me, and their portfolio commissioner, and we discuss the budget and we discuss items that are being requested. Once that process is done, we get together as a group, as a budget committee, and we review each item, all the requests, the entire budget, and try to determine if everything that was requested is truly a need. And we go through a filtering process, if you will, and try to determine what makes sense for the budget. And the other part of it, which you kind of mentioned, is that first we start looking at the expenditures. We look at the spending that we're doing, and we're comparing that to the resources that are available to us. So, and we do that for all of our departments, for all of our funds, for all the resources that we have, to try to make sure that we have a balanced budget. We obviously cannot spend more than we have, and so we have to be very diligent about what can go on to the 2026 budget and what cannot. And then once that process is completed, we bring that over and we share that with each commissioner, and we share that at the city commission table in July, where we discuss the budget. I go through my very lengthy slide presentation, and I try to inform everybody of where we end up and what the recommendations are for the requests and for potential positions, for potential additions to the budget, and basically explain how we fit things in to the resources that are available to us.
Sure. And so as you entered into that process, as we did for 2026, and obviously we approved the preliminary budget already, and in this month, September coming, we'll finalize our budget, and there's probably still going to be some edits to the budget. I'm anticipating at least some consideration of edits. But there were some priorities, I'll call them priorities, or maybe maybe priority is a bad word, but areas where we identified that were probably some needs that needed to be addressed going into 2026, including positions and some capital spending. Fortunately, we have reserved dollars from prior revenues, knowing we're going to have some larger capital expenditures. So we've set some of those aside. But let's talk about some of those, heavier lifts that we're having to look at for 2026.
Mayor, we have kind of two ways of thinking, and this is two thoughts, and I kind of, we were very careful about how we think of things in terms of the budget. We have something called, what we look at, and you know this very well, is the ongoing cost portion of things, one-time portion of things, and then things that are capital projects that are very large expenditures of funds because we need to build a building or something to that effect. And as you know, when it comes to ongoing things, those include like new positions, new personnel that we need to hire for the city to keep running the city effectively, and then as well as any sort of increases to operating budgets. And one of the things with those areas is we've added certain positions that needed to help with continuing operations of the city. HR was a very big emphasis in terms of adding positions this year for us. Again, we were a little bit more limited this year by House Bill 1176 on our resources, so we were very limited on how many positions we could potentially add. So we had to be very, very conservative in our approach with that. In addition, we had a lot of departments such as police, fire, public works needed a little bit of a catch-up to inflation, and so we had to increase their operating budgets. And so we focused a lot of our ongoing costs towards increasing their operating budget so they could continue to operate effectively into the future, and try to catch them up to the past several years where we had significant inflation. The other, and as you mentioned, some of the capital projects that we've had, on point, we have a new half-cent sales tax that will potentially help with the building of the new police station in the near future, and so we had to budget for that. We budgeted for a 6th fire station. We looked at things of that nature. We're obviously continuing things like the water treatment plant expansion project, which is funded purely by water fees, so it's not anything related to property tax. And then we continue our street improvement projects that we do every single year. So a lot of those which are funded by sales tax. And so we continue to have these projects. Those were kind of our main focus areas that we had to resolve and had to kind of make sure we have enough resources to attain.
And on the fire station, we have set aside a significant dollar amount for that, so that's not a direct impact, but we also know that that won't be the last fire station we need to build, so we have to be forward thinking related to that. But with fire station comes a major piece of equipment, which I don't think many people understand what the cost of a fire engine is. But it's, $1.2 to $1.5 million for an engine, and you have to place that order multiple years in advance.
Yeah, I believe 26 months I think it took for the last one.
And so those are the things that you looked at as we went through the budgeting process for 2026.
Correct.
Obviously, you said we budget for all of the departments, the enterprise funds, which are like water and sewer and landfill,
Yep.
as well as the general fund. And the general fund is what property taxes fund.
Correct.
The enterprise funds are not funded by property taxes unless we need to supplement maybe a capital improvement from somewhere. Hopefully not very often. That doesn't have to happen, but it could. As we went through the preliminary budgeting process, we were also trying to be very conservative on any rate adjustments that are the more noticeable reoccurring type items like water rates. That's actually below 3%. The increase, is it not? Or it's real close. It's not above.
Correct. I believe the water rates increased about 3%, and the sanitary sewer rates increased about 2.5%.
So that bill was under 3%
Under
in
the-
total.
Correct.
Totally. So yes, we will see some water rate adjustments, but we also made a positive adjustment going into 2025 to ratepayers and adjusting the base rate. So
Correct. We actually decreased the base rate as per your direction and direction of the City Commission in 2025. So we're just starting now to sort of move with inflation,
Right.
and try to move, just continually try to keep up with the costs of outside influences. Obviously a lot of the costs are not coming internally, they're coming from the outside. Chemicals and things of that nature are costing the city a little bit more. And so we just try to keep up with the cost of inflation.
Okay. So let's generally speak, if we look at our budget for the city, and certainly the general fund, but as a whole, all the other departments that are enterprise fund related, it's not like we have this cost of a bunch of equipment. A significant portion of our budget is made up of personnel costs. What do you think a rough range of what that might be of the general look at the global budget?
I think between 70 and 75% of our budget, of our overall budget, is personnel. I mean, the whole point of a local government is to provide services, and so a lot of our costs come from service-oriented positions and things to help. And another significant portion of our budget is capital projects. And with all the water plant expansions and the fire stations and police stations and lift stations that we add all the time, and all sorts of improvement to roads and streets. I mean, those are the big things in addition to our personnel.
Sure. So the general fund, again, is what most of us property owners probably focus on.
Correct.
I'm not saying that's the only thing that we should focus on, but it probably becomes the hot button. So if we look at the general fund, from an expenditure standpoint,
Yep.
what's kind of the makeup of that? Let's take the bigger pieces of it. So if we've got whatever our general fund budget number is, total is, 70-ish million?
Yep, it's right around there.
So how much of that is like for police?
So, general fund ended up being right around $72 million. Police makes up about $40 million of that, which is, 56%. It's quite a significant portion of things. Property tax collection is actually a smaller part of our general fund. If most people don't really know that or understand, is that property tax doesn't make up 100% of the general fund. It makes up only 36.8%, or 36.8 million, which is a much smaller percentage. If maybe around half of the general fund is made up of property tax. Then we have other forms of resources such as state aid, and that we're very gracious for, as well as we're allowed to move about $10 million of sales tax every year into the general fund to help offset the property taxes, which has been going on for many decades, several decades. So general fund, about half of it is public safety for sure.
And we define public safety as?
Police, fire, and CENTCOM, which is our 911.
Okay. And in addition to that, another thing that's very critical to our residents is roads and streets and snow removal and general maintenance, not big repairs, but just general maintenance. And that's kind of how much of our general fund budget as well.
You're correct, Mayor. The roads and streets is a huge chunk of our operations, and depending on the year, we always have to be prepared for major snowfalls like we had in 2022 and 2023, where it was multiple major storms that we had to clean up and be ready for. So yes, it makes up a significant portion. I would say between 10 and 15% of our general fund budget goes purely to them, and one of the key things for them is making sure not only that our staff are there and available to ready to do that kind of work, but also that they have the equipment that is operational and ready to go when the storm hits.
So part of my point of all that is by the time I take public safety and add streets to it, we're somewhere between 60 and 70% of our total general fund budget.
You're correct.
Going to those components. And our general fund budget is funded by roughly 50% property taxes.
You're exactly
So
right.
Our property taxes are only covering a portion of those very critical pieces of the general fund. And we have other pieces that are critical as well, like public health and some community development related engineering type stuff that doesn't all get covered by the fees that they may be collecting. And so this is an important thing that the city commission and the team at the city, who do a wonderful job, need to evaluate as we go into budgeting. And we're budgeting 6 months in advance of the year even happening. Actually, we start budgeting almost 12 months a year in advance of the year happening.
You're exactly right.
It's kind of hard to always know where inflation is going to take us. What other challenges did you see for 2026?
Another thing, it's important to mention is the police is sort of trying to become more technologically advanced and trying to move into, and all of public safety is really a lot of our departments, and you've kind of encouraged that with some of your messages to the staff and saying that we need to become more efficient, we need to look for efficiencies, look for things to improve on. And one of the things we've done is we've implemented body cameras, and we've used that system, the Axon system, to add on different features that included making things more efficient for the police officers, so they could document their reports using AI and able to and utilize that technology to maybe create some more efficiencies and give them a little bit more time in the field rather than sitting at their desks writing up reports, which could take them quite a bit of time. So we've kind of moved into that new area of utilizing technology as much as possible to create efficiency, so we don't have to necessarily maybe add personnel or add additional ongoing costs that could potentially use up more resources for the city. And I think that's probably the future of the city in general, is to try to become more efficient, utilize technology so we can minimize the increases of costs every year.
And we can see that even within the police department. As a result, the request for positions was mitigated, and we believe that will happen going forward too. That yes, there's an ongoing cost to that technology, but it probably is allowing us, who knows what the number of FTEs is, but it would only probably take 2 officers or maybe 3 officers, and that pays for that. So if we've saved 3, or if we save more than 3 officers as an FTE this year, we're money ahead as a city. And hopefully the goal is to still be a very proactive law enforcement and keeping our citizens safe. Do you see any other things that, as we look into beyond 2026 and how 1176 has probably been going to have an impact on us? I mean, we already know we try to be very conservative in our processes this year. What do you think the impacts might be going forward?
Great question. In my personal observation of data and information and how we went through the budget process and kind of how we see, others react to the 3% cap, I think the issue is going to come when we have a true need to expand our services. When we need to fill a new fire station, or we need additional police officers. Having the cap of 1176 might create a 3% cap, might create some challenges for that. I'm not saying that we couldn't overcome them or we can't find different ways of addressing them, but I think that's something that we'll definitely face, where we need to add between 12 and 15 new firefighters for a new fire station in a few years. Well, that'll cost us quite a bit of money, probably cost us several $1 million that we won't have in order to fill that fire station with the proper amount of personnel in order to make sure we're reacting to fires. And the same goes for all departments, really, not just fire, but police, kind of in the same boat, as well as any other departments that are funded by general fund, like you mentioned, that will require additional resources in order to provide adequate services.
So it's going to cause us to continue to look for alternative methods of delivering services. To stay within that, and I appreciate it. I mean, we all want to try to control our out-of-pocket costs as individual residents, and so the city needs to do the same thing as is required. Related to the whole budget, as an entity, we certainly encourage our residents to, be engaged. Where can they find the budget? How do they engage if they want to? We have an upcoming hearing in September.
Correct.
Go ahead and speak to that.
Absolutely. We will post the budget on our website at the end of this month. There you will also, I believe, the county auditors will be sending out letters with dates of public hearings of when the citizens are able to attend to the public hearing and make public comment on the budget. Which will be on September 9th, I believe. And we will post the budget on our website. It's also available if you actually want to look at the July 12th meeting, I believe it's the 12th, where we presented or 26th or 12th, one of the meetings where we presented the budget. In the agenda packet, there is a lot of information on the budget that we discussed. It also is my presentation if you want to look at DMA's video of that. It certainly would help explain some of the information. But we will post the budget on our website, and we'll have a link to it where citizens can go in and take a look and bring their comments if they choose to on September 9th.
And I believe it was the 26th. It was the second meeting in July when the preliminary budget was presented. So,
yes.
Dmitry, thank you for spending some time with me today and sharing some very insightful information. And I know we're very high level still, but there is a lot of information. If citizens want to dig into the budget, they can certainly find access to it and see where we're actually spending money.
Yes, and citizens are welcome to reach out to me, to our finance department is 701-355-1600, or they can email me and find my email on the city website. I'm happy to answer any questions to any citizen and talk about the budget and answer questions as they come.
Well, thank you for making yourself available.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for watching Bismarck Insights with Mayor Mike Schmitz. If you have specific topics or questions you'd like addressed in future episodes, email mschmitz@bismarcknd.gov. call the City of Bismarck at 701-355-1300. To learn more about the City of Bismarck, visit bismarcknd.gov or follow us on a variety of social media channels by searching BismarckND.gov. Bismarck Insights is a collaboration between Dakota Media Access and the City of Bismarck. You may find Bismarck Insights episodes on Government Access Channels 2 and 602, as well as on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV devices, on Radio Access 102.5 FM and on demand at freetv.org.